Gen Z is rejecting hustle culture. Gen Z is rejecting hustle culture. Make sure y'all hit a like for the algorithm, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications. Let's get this last subject out of the way. And then we're going to get up out of here so I can go take care of being Nas.
Lazy, entitled quitters. Gen Z have been labeled the hardest generation to work with. But are the people born between the 90s and 2010 really that difficult? Or do they have a thing or two to teach the world about work-life balance? I'm Annalise Borges, and this is The Stream.
What is hustle culture? What do y'all define hustle culture into being? Shout out to the Carolinas on DJ K Smooth. I'm gonna read that super chat shortly. What do y'all define as hustle culture? Because the way that I define hustle culture is much different than what you would define as hustle culture. See, this is what I define as hustle culture before we get into this. And I have not watched this video. This is something that somebody sent to me. And so I thought it would be a great switch up so we can talk about money. Some people define hustle culture as doing whatever it is that you can to feed your family. Like, okay, so you got a regular job and then you work the extra overtime, or, you know, you got a side hustle or a side job that you do on the weekends, or you got an overnight job, or you got, you know, driving, or you Ubering and lifting and you're doing door dashes on the side and stuff like that. A lot of people define that as hustle culture. I had a lady, she actually delivered my DoorDash. Now, you know Anton ain't about to be sitting here wasting my time doing all of that cooking. That's not what we doing today. I'm working from home, so I have my DoorDash and I ordered from Einstein Bagels, right? And lady came, and she was actually really decent looking. She was a white girl. She was decent looking, and so she knocked at my door. And then directly on my door, you can actually see the lake. And a lot of y'all already know what my view is and what the lake looked like. And she was like, oh my God, it's so beautiful. There's actually people that's playing hockey out there on the lake right now. She was like, oh my God, it's so beautiful, and all of this other type of stuff, right? And I'm like, oh yeah, the view is nice or whatever. She was like, I always was wondering who lived here, who lived in this one, who lived in this, whatever. And so she was talking or whatever, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's nice or whatever. And she was like, okay, I gotta hurry up and go. I gotta make a new delivery. I was like, oh, okay. I'm like, new delivery? I'm like, girl, you ain't got no regular job? She's like, oh yeah, I work at night and I deliver in the daytime and all of this stuff. And so she started running down her whole story. And she was I don't know, if I had to guess, she was probably like 30, maybe 28, somewhere between 28 and 30. And she was just basically saying like, yo, it's hard. It's hard out here. And in order for her to do what she got to do, she got to basically hustle and she got to grind because she, by herself, and she a single mama, a single baby mama, and all of this other type of stuff. And it's amazing the amount of insight that you get just from talking to people. And I just get it all the time. I'm always talking to people. But my point is that she's doing what she has to do to survive. And the women out here today, a lot of y'all don't realize how good y'all got it because you got somebody to help you and to cover you and even go half on them bills, or you can go 100% by yourself and really have to suffer and be delivering my DoorDash and trying to come up in my crib and see my view. You know what I'm saying? But I define hustle culture to be completely different than what y'all define it to be. I don't look at that as hustle culture. I just look at that as survival. It's just survival. For the longest, men have always had multiple jobs. Even my grandfather on my mother's side, he always, from the time that I ever known him to the time that he wound up passing away, it seemed like he always had two jobs. He worked at the post office and then he would work at the plant. My father was always a hustler, right? And maybe that's where I just got my work ethic from. My father was a hustler, and so, he worked at his regular job and then he would go and do construction, or they owned a concrete company and they would lay concrete and stuff like that, right? And so I look at hustle culture completely different. That's just survival. That's just normal. That's just trying to make sure that you go and get it. I look at hustle culture. That's what y'all define hustle culture is, doing the extras. Anything that you do over 40 hours in order to survive. That's why y'all keep protesting. I look at hustle culture as the thing that you're doing right before you really start a business. So when I see people going out to make extra money, or I see people doing this, but they actually saying that they're running a business, I don't look at that as a business. I look at that as a hustle because you're not really making no money yet. The minute that you start generating revenue, the minute that you can hire people, the minute that you can start pouring money back into it in order to continue to grow it, right? That's when it becomes a business. But a hustle is just a thing, a hustle or a hobby is just a thing that you're doing to try to make some extra money until it becomes a business, until it ultimately becomes a thing that you can quit your job for. So the way that you look at things a lot of times also define how it is that you're going to operate in the future, because if you see it as a future business, but it's just not making money yet, but you're treating it like a business, it'll then not become a hustle. It'll become just another stream of income. You see what I'm saying? Some people say, well, I got to do this hustle culture in order to survive. I say, no, I got to have multiple streams of income in order to generate more revenue to do the things that I really want to do and invest in. Because if you're just doing it to survive, that's just another job. That's not hustling. That's not a hustle culture. Now, if you're doing it in order to fund something different, then that's when it becomes a hustle until it becomes a business. And until then, it's nothing more than a hobby turned into a hustle turned into a business. So hustle culture is a mindset, in my opinion. The way that you're operating, you just in survival mode. And so if you didn't have any other choice, you wouldn't do it because you would be comfortable. And that's why a lot of people would then move to a different city because they don't want to continue to push as hard as it takes in order to survive in that place. Most people that live in Miami ain't on the beach. They ain't doing this stuff. They ain't hanging out. They ain't at the parties. They're not driving exotic cars. Although there's a lot of stuff there like that, they don't do that because they got more than one job just because it's so expensive to be able to live there. Let me go ahead and get into this video.
Optimistic, the generation that has popularized terms such as bare minimum Mondays, quiet quitting, and the latest lazy girl job is being required to go back to the office. I mean, we all are.
I love being a woman.
And it made me realize I don't care anymore what anybody gotta say. I'm a do me. I'm a do.
After and sleeping, when would I have time for myself?
It's not that the new generation is more difficult to work with, it's that the older generation is more difficult to work for.
From social media trends like the latest.
All of these people are cupcakes, bro. So weak. Half of them work from home or they got to do some hybrid schedule. They don't even know what it means like to really be on a job for 12 hours a day, 16 hours a day.
Lazy girl job and bare minimum Monday, Generation Z is rewriting the rules of the workplace. Many are rejecting the hustle culture and current ideals of success and productivity and prioritizing life outside of work. Managers and employers say this is just Gen Z's way of opting out of responsibility. But Gen Zs say times have changed and what they expect out of their careers should too. Today, we're going to dive into what is now a revolution. And to help me understand what's really happening here, I'm thrilled to welcome to the show Gabrielle Judge, the original creator of the lazy girl job trend, who encourages her nearly 170,000 TikTok followers to find meaning outside their careers. She's joining us from Denver in Colorado. Caroline Felix is a writer and a gender and climate activist. She's joining us from New York.
Look at these people's jobs. One of them is a TikToker. Another one is a writer slash, hold on, let me make sure. Let me make sure.
Caroline Felix is a writer and a gender and climate activist. She's
a writer and a gender and climate activist. Oh my God. When they asked you, what do you do for a living and what's your title? And if you say I'm a writer and gender client activist, that's wild. That is absolutely insane. A TikToker called the lazy something and a writer and a gender and a climate activist. These are your jobs. This is the meaning that you give into society. This is the way that you're going to change the world. This is how you're making the world a better place. This is how you're being productive. Whew. All right, let's continue, guys.
Joining us from New York. And Danielle Roberts is an anti-career coach who's joining us from.
These are children coaching you on how you're going to live your life. And her job is an anti-career coach. Look, man, this just means that you can name yourself anything that you want. I remember back in the early 2000s, everybody was a CEO of their own record label. This should be fun.
Tampa in Florida. Thank you all so much for being here today. I really appreciate you joining this conversation. There is so much to talk about. So I want to start with Gabrielle, if that's okay. Can you explain to our viewers this concept that you created, the lazy girl job? What does it mean?
Yeah, so it's a TikTok trend. So there's tons of lazy girl trends out there. So that's always been super fun to watch. And so when I was watching those, I was like, well, why aren't we talking about jobs? Like lazy girl.
Her microphone not even on.
Hair routines is super fun too, but let's talk about something else, right? So that's where lazy girl jobs came out of. Really, it's a term to normalize work-life balance and have better work-life balance conversations. And Gen Z really stuck to it, hence why we saw such a rise with it on TikTok.
That is fascinating. It is a very interesting phenomenon. So the whole being lazy.
Whenever somebody says something is interesting, that means that it's stupid, but they don't want to call it stupid, so they just call it interesting in order to try to be a little nicer to you about it.
Here, it's just a stereotype, isn't it? Can you run us through that part?
Of course, yeah. So I appreciate that question. It's so important to hit on the lazy part too. I intentionally called it lazy because if you look at what I'm talking about, it's just work-life balance. But if you have a work-life balance conversation in a hustle culture-centered culture, right, it's lazy. So it was more calling that out in a tongue-in-cheek way.
Interesting. Danielle, there used to be a plan. We used to be told, go to college, find a job, and you will be successful. You are now an anti-career coach. Can you tell our viewers what it is that you do and what you tell your clients these days?
As a millennial, we were taught to climb the corporate ladder and check the boxes to be successful, go to school, and regular career coaches operate on the notion that dream jobs exist. And as an anti-career coach, I believe that dream jobs don't exist and that we really need to reject hustle culture and stop centering work as the most important thing in our lives. And we really need to focus on what makes us fulfilled. And we can also do that when we are in the workplace by focusing on our engagement and our energy levels.
Colleen, disrupted, difficult, demanding are just some of the words that are being used and have been used to describe your generation. Do you think that they are fair?
I don't think so. I think what we've seen, especially for Gen Zers, we've lived, throughout our lives and seen how this promise that work is everything has consistently failed us. We've seen the 2008 recession and how our parents really struggled through that. We saw that during COVID, where, especially in the United States, there were mass layoffs for companies that called us their family. And that was absolutely devastating.
Let me debunk a little bit of this before she continues to spew out this nonsense. Number one, the recession was caused by a couple different things. It was caused by greedy bankers. It was also set in place by politicians that came before you during the Bush administration, but largely the Clinton administration, right? Because greed was a thing during the Clinton presidency, and everybody celebrated them because it seemed like they were making a lot of money, but in reality, they were mortgaging their future. And it also came on the heels of people being irresponsible, knowing that they couldn't afford homes that they also decided to get into, and then they were taken advantage of because everybody was greedy, and so everybody got finessed at the time. It had nothing to do with your work-life balance, hustle culture, any of that. It had everything to do with us as a people being irresponsible with the people that we put in the office. It had everything to do with the greed of the banks, and it also had everything to do with the greed of the people and the consumers of being overly indulged in mortgaging our future by continuing to buy homes and to get into places that we knew we couldn't afford in the first place. That's the truth. Okay. During the pandemic cupcake, what I actually seen happen was more money being given out, interest rates being lowered, and there was a hiring spree. As a matter of fact, we're seeing the repercussions of that hiring spree and technology companies continue to pare back, especially when it comes to AI and information technology over at Meta and those different places. But there's a hiring spree. As a matter of fact, it wasn't layoffs. It was more or less people getting comfortable. And that's why so many people were purchasing homes and spending money. And we had the biggest buying trend that we had across the nation than we've ever had in our entire lives, or ever since the 2000, a little bit before the 2008 recession. So when she says this, it's wrong. It's wrong. We overhired. That's why everybody was, trying to finesse. You had trucking people that was trying to tell y'all to go out here and get into trucking when they didn't really understand the trucking industry. We made more money than we ever have during the recession at that time of our life. I had got richer during the Trump administration. I had made more money than I ever have in my entire life. So all of this is wrong. She's wrong, but neither here nor there.
So I think Gen Zers, after seeing how companies, see us as it's just business. It's nothing personal, especially when they lay us off. I think we are reciprocating that and just being like, well, this is a job. This is not my whole life. And once again, with COVID, we saw that we can work from home and also still have a life, that our work doesn't necessarily have to be everything. We don't have to necessarily be in the office 5 days a week and need to work 40 hours a week for our economy to survive. So I think it's not necessarily that we're lazy. It's just that we are being realistic and looking past this kind of dream landscape of work being everything.
It is fascinating. Would you say that then the economic uncertainty of our times has a lot to do with what's happening now?
I think in a way, yes, economic uncertainty for many young people, it is unlikely that we'll be able to have, especially after student loan debts and the high cost of rent, that we will even be able to buy a house in our 30s. So I think that the economy certainly has a lot to do with it. But I also feel like even past the economy, I think in the West, there's still this, this dream that if you work really hard, then you can, retire and go on vacation for the rest of your life. But that hasn't been true for decades for a lot of people. So I think Gen Z are.
No, it still is true. The problem is that you want to party just as hard as you work, and you only want to work for 10 years or 5 years or 3 years, and then you expect to be able to retire when you're 26. You want to graduate when you're 22. You want to retire when you're 26. And then you want to live the soft life. And if you can't do that, then you're going to go try to find a man to take care of you for the rest of your life and shame him into going 100-0. That's the ratio. He pay 100%, you pay 0, and y'all ain't even got no kids together. And it is a reality, right? The problem is that most people don't want to hold on long enough to actually get to the results. So they want to go out and they want to go and get this expensive place. They want to go live in Miami. They want to move to New York. They want to go party. They want to go get an expensive car. The average car note is going to be $1,000 a piece. They want to live central to everything and don't even have a roommate. Let me tell y'all what the real life hack is. You want to know what the real life hack is? Very, very simple. This is something that even the ones that throw shots at me won't even tell you. The real life hack, honestly, is to stay home as long as you possibly can and to lower the amount of money that you're spending on things that other people feel like is a necessity. Everybody feel like it's necessary to move out of their parents' house. Everybody want to go out there and do it on their own. They don't want to have a roommate. They want to run out. Listen, help your family in their household and stay home till you're 30. I promise you, you're not going to miss nothing. You ain't going to miss nothing but a bunch of bills. And if you stay home till you 30, you go to college, you go to school, you minimize the amount of money that you're spending in student loans that you're taking out. Don't use no credit cards. Don't jack up your lifestyle. And then make sure that you continue to pour everything that you have over into your investments and assets. You will be scot-free. Man, I promise you. You will absolutely positively, if you play it the right way, you will absolutely positively become a millionaire before you're 40 years old. And you will be able to live the rest of your life how you want to. Stay home and help your parents with the costs They gonna appreciate it because it gives them a lot of relief. Because when you stay at home, I don't want you to just stay home and just lean on your parents. I want you to stay home and actually contribute into the household. Hey, I can help towards the rent and I'll take over a utility. I promise you they're going to let you stay home. They want you there. They don't want you out in the streets. Your problem and our problem is that we want to do what we want to do. So now because you want to bust it down and you want to have somebody sleeping over and all of that, that's your problem, is that you can't do what you want to do because you have to have a level of decorum. You have to have some respect for yourself. They're going to force you to continue to not be busting it down and be for the streets and coming in at all times of the night. That's really what it is. You want to go out there and you want to. Most of us that left home and went to colleges, we didn't have to stay on campus. We didn't even have to go over to that expensive school. We didn't have to go out of state in order to run it up and all of that. The reality is that we could have saved ourselves so much headache, so much grief, so much in credit card debt, but we wanted to live on campus. We wanted to go out. And because we created these self-inflicted wounds for ourselves, now we're going to blame it on hustle culture. Now we're going to blame it on the economy. Now we're going to blame it on Trump and Obama and all of that. When the truth is, we decided to do it, and now we want to blame it on the system for what it's going to cost us in the end to repay back all of that stuff that we partied with and the money that we took out, because that money is more expensive now that we got to pay for it with interest on top of it. Now, whatever you spent on partying and credit cards, it's going to cost you triple because you're going to have to pay way more in interest when you pay it back to the federal government or you pay it over to the bank. If you stay home and you stay focused and you don't get caught up in none of this BS and you don't let people influence you to do stuff that you don't want to do, man, I'm telling you, bro. Look, I went to University of Detroit Mercy College, the Titans, not Mercy, UAD. The Titans, right? And I went there for the first semester out of high school. And I quit that crap immediately. And I was like, yo, I paid my tuition. I came out of there. I didn't take out no student loans. I got my tax refund. I paid all of that junk off. And I said, I'm not doing this. Because it was a private college. And it was tuition per credit hour. I did the comparison. I looked at the tuition per credit hour. And then I looked at what it was going to cost me to get a 4-year degree. I was like, man, I'm out of this. I went and got me a job. That's when my brother had got me into the plant. That's when we started running it up. Now, did I do what I was supposed to do with the money that I was making from the plant? A little bit. I stacked up, 25% out of every check that I made. But for the rest of it, because I was making a whole lot of money, I blew that money. I blew it. So it was still a self-inflicted wound, right? And thankfully, I was, still young enough to recover, and I was intentional after I have my daughter at 26 years old or whatever. And at that time, it was the recession. So, it forced me to really have a come to Jesus moment. But the reality is that if we just do the thing that we supposed to do, and if you tell your kid, hey, man, you ain't got to move out, for what? Ain't nothing out there. Ain't nothing out there but the devil. And we stop having these self-inflicted wounds, we'll have way better results. Bro, you can change the entire generation and trajectory of your family in one generation. It don't even have to be a generation. It could be a half of a generation. You can change your fortunes. You can change your kids' fortunes, all by just making a couple informed decisions and not doing and going along with the trend. You don't have to get a new car. Take public transportation. It's even cool now to walk more. It's cool now to take public transportation. There's nothing wrong with taking public transportation. I take public transportation every day almost when it's not cold outside. I don't even drive my car when I'm in my office. I take the Q line. I take the buses. I walk. It's healthier for us. It costs me less. It's not that I'm doing it because of the money. It's because I'm doing it because it's actually more inconvenient to drive depending on where you live at. You got to go and pay for parking. You got to pay for insurance. You got to pay for the car note. Got to pay the interest on the car. It's stupid. I would just rather walk and be immersed in. You see things that you never seen before. You notice stuff. You go to different restaurants. You have more disposable income to go and invest in. Stay home, chill, catch the bus. You can basically operate off of almost nothing. Let's say you come out of college, or let's say you go to college, or let's say you get a job, and you making $40,000 to $50,000 a year, and you single, right? Let's say you even making 60 to 70, because now these jobs are paying even more depending on where you live at and stuff, or what field that you go into. and you don't got no expenses? Only expenses that you got is what, $300 because you contributed into rent to your household and your parents just want you to be halfway responsible. It's not even that they need your $300. You take a utility bill, okay, you pay an extra $100 a month. Couple streaming services, you're a part of the Patreon, so you leveling up and making more money. You ain't got no expenses after that. You just running it up. You running it up. And so it's not that it's the culture and hustle culture and what it is that you're doing. It's the fact that we have all of these expenses that we give to ourselves that's not going to be conducive for our lifestyle if we're not making the right decisions.
Even within a good economy, I think some of those promises were a bit unrealistic.
Yeah, who's thinking about retiring anymore? Just a parenthesis here. We talked about lazy girl job. But there's also quiet quitting. And actually, the amount of concepts circulating online right now is...
Aaron says, taking a bus to work. I'm going to read y'all super chat shortly. Taking a bus to work takes an hour plus. So what? When I'm on a bus or when I'm on a queue line, you know what I'm doing? Honestly, I'm like this. When I jump on the queue, let's say it take me an hour, because a lot of y'all driving an hour or whatever that like that in traffic stuff in any way, right? This is what I'm doing while I'm on there. I'm gonna be honest with you. When I'm on, because I'm never really missing an opportunity just because it take me an hour. I say it costs you more to drive, even though it only takes you 20, 25 minutes, than it takes me to take the bus, right? And the reason that is because me getting on the bus is actually them driving me. It's like having a driver. So the entire time, I'm sitting there and I'm doing like this. And I'm doing budgets, and I'm making sure that I'm editing videos, and I'm doing work for my job, because everything is connected now, right? I got a data plan, or I can just connect to whatever it is that's on my phone. Right, I'm monitoring things. So I'm actually doing an hour's worth of work, an hour and 20 minutes worth of work while I'm sitting there on the bus, while you sitting there and you can't do nothing while you driving except for listen to music and talk to people that ain't even got your best interest at heart. And so I'm telling you, it's your mindset. It's your mindset. If you actually leverage the time and start thinking differently about the time that you're using, and you start to use it more effectively versus looking at it and say, oh, it's going to catch me an hour, then you'll have better results. But because we're not sitting here and actually leveraging it, when I got people with me, I'd rather them drive. You know why? Because then I can sit in the back of the car. I can do stuff. I can get stuff done. I get more done in an hour. One of the reasons why, anyways, let me listen a little bit more to them. I ain't going to preach.
Very significant. I want you to take a look at this video we sourced from TikTok introducing Bare Minimum Monday.
A bare minimum Monday in your late 20s. You think about how bad your Sunday scaries used to be when you had your corporate job. You remember the cognitive dissonance of having the job but being more miserable than ever before. You think about the day you quit, hoping self-employment was the answer. No more boss, no more stress, no more Sunday scaries, right? You were wrong. Your stress actually got worse because you didn't have a boss problem. You had a hustle culture problem. And you burned out again. So you began to dismantle your beliefs on productivity and remove yourself from hustle culture.
Danielle, there's been a real shift in the way we see and talk about mental health here. I'm aware of the risk that I run of sounding very old. When I entered the job market, there was this pressure of just hustling, of getting as many jobs and as much experience as you could possibly get. But now this hustle culture really is perceived as not being super healthy.
Yeah, I think at the core of it, when we hustle, we abandon taking care of our mental and physical health. And without our health, we have nothing. And when we prioritize just what...
This is all foolishness, man. Get you a calendar, stick to it, and don't have self-inflicted wounds. It's really that simple.